Hey Potter Nerds, it is Kathleen and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a magical, wonderful day. Welcome to my channel if you're new, welcome back if you're not. So if you are new to my channel, you may not be aware that I have just started my Living Lumos book club. It is a book club where we are reading the Harry Potter series from the Sorcerer Stone / Philosopher Stone all the way to the Deathly Hallows. So right now we are right at the beginning, so if you're new here, you're just in time. But even if you're not new, and you're going back watching this video when it's not new, yeah, you're welcome to start anytime. So we are here on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in America, Philosopher's Stone everywhere else. In my last video announcing the book club, I talked all about the cover and talked about the plot summary on here and went in depth about the book itself. So if you want to see that, be sure to check that out. And yeah, we're going to get right into chapters 1 and 3. But before we get into chapters 1 through 3 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone / Philosopher's Stone, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and add a little more Lumos to your day. And give this video a big thumbs up if you are enjoying the book club so far, even though this is just really the first discussion. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking and let's get straight into the discussion. So this is the format right now for the book club. It might change in the future, but I'm going to wait and see how it works out for us. And if you have any issues or wish that we did it a different way, please let me know down below. I would love your suggestions. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss each chapter. I have in my notes right here in my Harry Potter journal from 2000, I'm going to share with you what the chapter was about, key points, some of the stuff that I thought was hilarious or that stood out to me. And then I'm going to give discussion questions and then move on to the next chapter and so on. And you can answer the discussion questions down below and I'll read them, respond, and I might even highlight some of my favorite responses in the next video. So that's how that's going to work for right now. And yeah, let's get to chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. So chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. So chapter 1 is basically all about telling us who the Dursleys are and giving us an insight into the very normal lives the Dursleys lead. We learned about Vernon Dursley, the bread maker. We learn about Mr. Vernon Dursley, the breadwinner of the Dursley family. He has a job as a drill salesman at Grunnings. And his wife, Petunia, is a stay-at-home mom and wife, and she's very gossipy, very poised, and always gardening and cooking. And then we learn about Dudley, who is their son, who is, who in their opinion there was no finer boy anywhere than Dudley. But we're quickly told that there is a dark secret, a dark secret in the family they never discussed, and they would be embarrassed if it ever got out, about Petunia's sister, Mrs. Potter, and her no-good husband, Mr. Potter, and their, and they had a son about Dudley's age as well, and they did not want their son, Dudley, to be mixing with a child like that. So we're not really told what it is, but we're basically hearing that their lives are so normal. They're the perfect perfect white fence family. Well, white fence would be like more of an American term, but they're basically the perfect family, but they have a secret. And now we're taking through a day of Mr. Dursley's life. And we notice that it's his normal day, but there are some strange happenings happening. So there are some strange things happening throughout his day, such as this tabby cat, which we know eventually is McGonagall, And he's like looking at this cat, and he sees a cat reading a map. Then the map is gone. The cat reading the Privet Drive number 4's sign, and he's like, no, he can't do that. And then the cat just kind of stares at him. And it's... Oh wait, that was later, but the cat basically is the first weird thing that happens. Then when he is walking to across the street, waiting across the street, he notices these strange people dressed in strange clothes and cloaks, purple, green colors, and it was very, very strange to him. And then he was hearing some whispers on his lunch break about the Potters and their son Harry, but he's like, that can't. He was like thinking about calling Petunia and asking about it. He's like, no, that can't be the Potters. Their son couldn't be Harry. It could be Harvey or Howard. Totally not them. So he's just kind of delusioning himself to make himself feel better. And as he's leaving work, he even gets hugged by one of these strange people. And the person says, says sorry to the tiny person he bumped into. And the person says, don't be sorry, my dear sir, for nothing could accept me today. Rejoice, for you know who has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy, happy day. And the man hugged him, hugged her. I'm just imagining this scenario where Vernon's getting hugged by this guy. It's so funny to me, just thinking about Vernon Dursley, the most stern man, just being hugged by some tiny old man in a cloak. It just makes me laugh. And then after this, he was rattled. He went home, and again, the cat was standing there, and he told it to shoot, and it stared at him with a stern look, which makes me laugh too, because we know that's Minerva McGonagall. I'm just imagining Minerva McGonagall just staring at Vernon Dursley going, do something, I dare you. So after Vernon gets home and has this incident with the cat, he goes inside, trying to put everything out of his mind, but he turns on the news, and there's some strange disturbances. There's owls flying everywhere, and the people are trying to figure out why these owls are suddenly appearing everywhere and are acting so erratically. And there's also they're shooting stars, and they're kind of chalking up to people celebrating something called Bonfire Night. Anybody, if they know what that is, let me know. Basically, he suddenly knows something's probably up, so he gets the courage and asks Petunia, hey, have you heard from your sister lately? And Petunia is mad because they usually pretend that she doesn't have a sister. So she says, no, why would you say that? He says, oh, I just saw some strange people and thought maybe it was something to do with their kind. And they basically put it out, he doesn't even mention their son. He asked, what was their son's name anyway? Howard. And she says Harry, and he doesn't even dare to say what he had heard people saying on the street. And he just kind of puts it out of his mind, and they go to bed. He was laying awake, but eventually falls asleep. And then this is when this is when the story really begins. Dumbledore, or a cloaked figure, shows up, and he looks at the cat that's standing outside Privet Drive number 4, and he seems amused to see the cat, and he says, I should have suspected I would see you here. And the cat is no longer there, and is another woman in a green cloak. He's wearing a purple cloak, and we know this to be Dumbledore and McGonagall. And let me see. But before we even get there, I think this is actually interesting. I had watched a TikTok that someone who's doing a reread of Harry Potter as well, saying, you know, I didn't realize that in the first book, the Deluminator was called the Put Outer, which was what Dumbledore uses to snuff out all the lampposts so that way no one can see them. So I don't know why it was called the Put Outer, not instead of Deluminator, or that it gotten changed later on by J.K. Rowling. But it's very interesting, something to point out. And then Minerva is talking with Dumbledore and trying to confirm if you know who is really gone, and saying that the Muggles know something is up, which Muggles would be non-magical people. We find out later, obviously. Saying people are noticing, and I was wondering about this too. She thinks these celebrations are too noticeable, which I'm wondering, like, how did the ministry handle this, handle all these, like, basically almost breaking a statute of secrecy, because the shooting stars were very much from a magical source. And she even says shooting stars is probably Daedalus Diggle, which I'm going to look up who that is later. And Dumbledore's just kind of looking at her saying, oh, you should be celebrating too. But then she finally looks at him and says, is what they're saying true? That happened. The reason why, she didn't want to say Voldemort because people were obviously very scared to say Voldemort's name, and Dumbledore was the only one who wasn't, because, and then McGonagall's like, well, that's because you're the only one he fears, and Dumbledore admits there is some magic that he could do that I could never do, which I think is interesting. But McGonagall finally breaks the ice. It's like, look, is everything we're hearing true? And he says yes. She's like, so James and Lily, he said, both dead. And they basically reveal that Voldemort had tried to kill Harry Potter, but he couldn't for some reason, and he disappeared right after that. And people are thinking that Harry defeated him somehow. So this is all a lot for McGonagall, and she starts crying, this kind of gives me chills, when you kind of read this again. The scene gives you more chills than it did before. And of course, when I first read it, I was like 6, 7. So, Dumbledore looks at his watch, and what's interesting? This is like one piece of merchandise that I would love to have. Dumbledore has his watch. It has 12 hands, no numbers, little planets moving around the edge, but only Dumbledore would probably know how it works. I want to see that clock. What about y'all? Dumbledore says that they're going to make sure Harry's safe, and McGonagall's like, where is he? And he says Hagrid is bringing him here, and of course, Minerva's like, are you sure you should trust Hagrid with something so important? That's when we have the famous line, I would trust Hagrid with my life. And suddenly we hear this, or in the book, they hear this rumbling, and and Hagrid comes slamming down, and McGonagall is not happy that they are going to be leaving Harry with the, I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Minerva makes sure that Dumbledore knows that she says that these muggles, the Dursleys, are the worst of the worst, and they definitely shouldn't be leaving Harry with him. And Dumbledore's like, this is the only family he has. And this is like one of my favorite parts in this chapter, Minerva says, he'll be famous beyond words. There'll be books written about him, and every child will know his name. And I think about that quote that when there was like an interview where J.K. Rowling was talking about that sentence, and she said, I never dreamed in a million years that very sentence would become very true. So that's pretty cool to me. But Dumbledore says that it's the perfect plan because he needs to grow up away from all of that and be with the Dursleys. So Hagrid arrives on Sirius Black's motorcycle, which is an interesting tidbit for later on. That's Sirius Black's motorcycle. Hagrid was able to get Harry away from the rubble of the house in Godric's Hollow before all the Muggles came swarming over it, which was weird to me because I thought Godric's Hollow was the only was all wizard town. There weren't Muggles, but I guess Muggles came from out of town. I'm not sure. But anyway, the baby was fast asleep, and Dumbledore attaches a letter to this bundle, to the blankets that Harry was bundled up in, and they leave him on the door stoop and just walk away. I'm just like, you couldn't have explained it to them? You couldn't have done this in person? But they all walk away. Hagrid goes off on the motorcycle. Minerva and both Hagrid are emotional about it, and the very last sentence from Dumbledore is, good luck, Harry. And the chapter ends saying that this baby is laying on the stoop, not knowing who he is, not knowing where he came from, and not knowing that in hidden circles all around him, they were people toasting to him and whispering to Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Sorry, that part gives me chills. Now, that's basically what this chapter is about. My favorite parts, obviously, was Minerva just staring down Vernon Dursley, just glaring at him as a cat. And of course, I enjoy. My favorite thing is when Minerva says there will be books written about him and everyone will know his name, because that really is that has come to ring true even in our world. Now, here's the discussion questions I have for this chapter. I don't have a set number that I'll have for each chapter, just ones that come to my mind. The first question is, if you were a witch or wizard during the time after Voldemort had just disappeared, and because of Harry Potter, the boy who lived, how would you be celebrating that? My second discussion question is, who do you think Harry should have lived with instead of the Dursleys? Like, even if they were his only family left, do you think there would have been better options for him? Let me know down below. And why the flipendo didn't Dumbledore just talk to the Dursleys? Why did he leave a letter instead of staying and explaining what happened in person? I think that's something that warrants a face-to-face conversation. Let me know why you think you didn't do it, or vent your frustrations about it. And yeah, let us move to chapter 2. Alright, chapter 1's discussion was a bit lengthy. I apologize. That chapter has a lot of important details in it, and I really enjoyed reading it again for like the first time in a long time. But I'm gonna try and be a little more brief with the other chapters. But I mean, if you don't mind it being lengthy, that's cool for y'all, I guess. So yes. Chapter 2, The Vanishing Glass. So in this chapter, it is very clear that Dudley and Harry lived two very different lives at number 4 Privet Drive. This is 10 years later, and we realize that Harry lives in the cupboard under the stairs, like a very tiny, like, closet, basically, and that's where he's lived for 10 years. And Dudley has his own bedroom up. He always has all the newest toys and all the latest video games and electronics and the newest clothes. And Harry literally has the hand-me-downs clothes from Dudley and is constantly beat up by Dudley. Dudley is very round and plump, while Harry is very scrawny, mostly probably because he doesn't get fed very much. So, very different lives. And all Harry knew of his past was that his parents died in a car crash, and he got the scar from the car crash. And he wouldn't know anymore because the number 1 rule in the Dursley household for Harry is don't ask questions. So chapter 2 is about Dudley's 11th birthday, because Harry and Dudley are about the same age, and he always has like 100 million presents. And Harry gets woken up by Petunia to start cooking the breakfast for Dudley's birthday, and Dudley comes down and he counts his present, and the numbers are a little different in the movie than the book, but basically remember that scene where he's like 36, but last year I had 37. So I only had 37 presents, including Aunt Marge's present, and last year he had 38, and he starts throwing a huge tantrum because basically it's clear from the book that he knows that's how he gets what he wants. And he doesn't really cry, he just kind of wails until he gets what he wants. And Petunia, not wanting to ruin her daughter's big day, she looks at him and says, well, how about while we're out, we'll buy you 2 new presents. So Dudley starts opening his presents. He gets a new computer games, a new video camera, and lots of crazy gifts, clearly showing showing how great Dudley's life was compared to Harry's. And Petunia gets a phone call and is very distraught about it because Mrs. Fig, who usually watches Harry when they go on outings, when they go out of the house and don't want to leave him home alone but don't want to bring them with him, she usually watches him. Mrs. Fig had broken her leg and couldn't watch Harry. And Harry's kind of relieved about it because how he described Mrs. Fig was that her house had a living room that smelled like cabbage, and she would literally show him photo albums of all the cats she had ever owned. Just the way that he describes it is funny to me. So they're trying to figure it out, and Harry says, well, you can just leave me here, and Petunia's like, oh, so we can come back to the wreck of a house later? And Harry knew there wasn't any point in arguing that he wasn't going to do anything because they just think he's up to no good. Because we get into, we get a hint that strange things happen around Harry. We'll get into that more later, but Harry does get to actually go on the birthday outing for Dudley. Dudley has a friend, what's his name? Piers. I was gonna say Piers Morgan, but that's a celebrity. Oh, Piers Polkiss. That's the name of Dudley's friend. So Piers Polkiss is the friend that gets to go Dudley, and basically he's the one that holds everybody's arms back as Dudley wails on them. So not really good for Harry in that situation, but Harry gets to go because they couldn't find anybody because Mrs. Fig couldn't watch him. And he was slightly excited about getting out of the house, but but before they even got in the car, Vernon took him aside and said, any funny business, ain't at all, and you'll be in your cupboard till Christmas. So Harry kind of just nodded. Let's see. So they go to the zoo, and he's actually having a pretty nice day with the Dursleys, which is a change. He's actually enjoying his day. He's actually having a really nice day, which he knows is not going to last very long because, like I said, strange things happens around Harry. There was this one incident where his hair grows uncontrollably. Like, his hair is always wild and out. And one time, Petunia literally took clippers and almost shaved his hair except for his bangs because they wanted to cover the scar. Oh, didn't even mention that he has a lightning bolt scar, but we know this. Most of us know this. Anyway. I wanted to mention the scar because of the car crash, unquote. But anyway, so she left these bangs, and Harry was so upset over sleeping because he's like, everybody's gonna make fun of him at school tomorrow. You know, he gets made fun of anyway because of his glasses, always taped up because of him getting constantly broken by being beaten up by Dudley and all this. So he's so scared to go to school the next day, and he wakes up and his hair had grown back as if it had never been cut. There was another incident where he was running around the school, running away from Dudley and his friends who were trying to beat him up, and he was trying to jump behind the trash cans. He ends up on the roof. So there's several crazy things that happen. So he knows that even though he's having a great time at the zoo, something bad's about to happen. So as I've said, Harry had a pretty good day at the zoo, and he got to have a lemon ice pop. You know, it was cheap, but the lady asked him if he wanted one before the Dursleys could square him away when they were trying to get ice creams for Piers and Dudley. He gets to finish Dudley's ice cream from lunch because he wanted more ice cream, so Vernon bought him another one because, you know, Dudley is so spoiled. But he's had a good day until they get to the reptile house. Dudley and Piers really wanted to go to the reptile house room, whatever they call it, because they wanted to see some man-eating cobras and man-crushing pythons, you know, typical little boy stuff, rough and gruff little boy stuff. So they're passing by the a big boa constrictor, and they're looking through the glass, and Dudley's like, make it move. They're tapping on the glass, and it's not moving. It just kind of looks irritated. So they walk off, but Harry stays behind. Snake kind of looks really irritable, and he goes, he's like, I know, it's pretty annoying, isn't it? Kind of strikes up this conversation, and the snake seems to understand him, nods his head, and Harry's like, oh, where are you from? It points to the sign saying boa constrictors from Brazil. He says, oh, Brazil sounds nice, and then he points to the sign again, and it says bred in captivity. And it's really interesting how Harry relates to the snake in captivity. It's kind of sad, really. And I don't know, it's really sad to me just that they kind of relates to this snake, but he also feels like he has empathy with snakes. Like, the snake probably has a lot worse than him, so it kind of shows from the beginning how empathetic Harry is as a character. People try and crap on Harry, saying he's a, just kind of, has kind of a trust fund baby in a way, but he's very empathetic because of the situation he's been in. So then when Piers sees that Harry is talking to this boa, he's like, look what the snake's doing, and Dudley punches Harry in the ribs, move him out of the way, and Harry falls to the ground, kind of really upset, and suddenly the glass disappears. What's different is that Dudley does not fall, from the movie, Dudley does not fall in, he and Piers are screaming because the boa starts unfurling and comes out of the exhibit and escapes and just kind of starts playfully nipping at people's heels, and Harry can swear he's hearing it say, going back to Brazil, adios amigos, or gracias amigo, talking to Harry, and this kind of confirms that this is not the same snake as we will see starting in Goblet of Fire. Just letting you know, it's not Nagini. Anywho. So this happens. Dudley and Piers are just shaken up. They're not hurt, but they're both like swearing that, oh my god, it tried to eat me, or it tried to wrap around and squeeze the life out of me. And then Piers opens his big mouth and says, Harry was talking to it, weren't you, Harry? And that basically, once they get back and Piers is left, and Vernon waits till Piers leaves, and he tells him, get in the cupboard now. And Harry doesn't even get to say, he can't really say anything because it doesn't matter, so he gets severely punished for this. By the time that he is let out, the summer holidays are there. Not exactly sure when Dudley's birthday is, but basically he gets severely punished for something that really wasn't, that was kind of, that he didn't understand why it was his fault. While Harry is in being punished, when he's sleeping, he's trying so hard to remember his parents. He's just kind of having, he's having, I wouldn't say a pity party, because it's not, he really should be pitied. He's just trying to imagine, like, what would it be like if his parents were here, and he wishes he could remember being in the car with them. But as hard as he tries to remember the car crash, the only things he can remember is a jet of green light and a burning scar. So that's, important things. And he's also like wondering, like, he wishes that someone would come sweep him away. And he actually, something else that's important, like he's had strange run-ins with people that seem to know him, because he doesn't really know anybody except for the Dursleys and the people the Dursleys let him interact with. So sometimes when they're out, he'll have run-ins with strange people who seem to know him, people that shake his hands or bow to him, and Petunia and Vernon like are questioning him, like grilling him, do you know these people? And obviously Harry doesn't, but they don't believe him. So that's kind of something that was interesting to me in this chapter. So overall, for this chapter is a glimpse into Harry's early childhood under the care, very emphasized quotes there, care of the Dursleys, and the strange occurrences that seem to follow him. So that's basically what The Vanishing Glass is about. And I have a couple of discussion questions for this chapter. First is, how would you have coped living with the Dursleys? And number 2, what would you do if a snake started communicating with you? So let's get to the last chapter. Finally, chapter 3, The Letters from No One. Now this chapter is really funny. I've forgotten how comical this chapter was. So basically it is the end of summer, or it is getting close to the end of the summer holidays, and both Harry and Dudley are preparing to go back to school. Harry is going to the public school, Stonewall High, while Dudley is going to Smeltings, a private school that Vernon went to, and Vernon's so proud of his little dudders. Ugh, I hate that. I feel cringy when I say that. But he was so excited, and Dudley gets to go to London to get his fittings for his school uniforms, and at Smeltings they get sticks to hit each other with. The whole shebang. And Harry Harry wakes up one day to this awful smell, and apparently Petunia is dyeing some of Dudley's old clothes gray so that he can blend into the uniforms and everything with Harry, and Harry's just kind of like, Like, people are gonna make fun of me so hard because I not only am scrawny and have these, you know, taped glasses, now I'm gonna look like I'm wearing loose elephant skin, because Harry had some pretty sassy thoughts. Like, I wish that movie Harry was as sassy as book Harry. So, the same morning while this is getting done, Dudley is, you know, strolling into breakfast with his smelting stick, and they all hear the clink of the mailbox. So Vernon's like, okay, Dudley, go get the mail. And Dudley's like, make Harry get it. And he goes, Harry, get the mail. And Harry goes, make Dudley do it. And Dudley tries to smack him with the smelting stick at the encouragement of Vernon. So Harry goes and gets the mail. There's 3 letters, and one of them is addressed to Harry. More specifically, Mr. Harry Potter, cupboard under the stairs, privet 4 drive, or privet drive number 4, blah blah. And he comes back to the kitchen stupidly. If it was me, I probably would have, you know, just stashed it. But he comes back to the table, starts opening it, and Dudley's like, Harry's got a letter. And Vernon snatches it away, and he goes, what are you doing? That's mine. He's like, who would want to write you? But as soon as he sees the letter, and as soon as he opens it and starts reading it, he turns from green to gray to white. And Harry's trying to get the letter back, and Dudley's like, I want to read it, because, you know, Dudley is annoying as all get out. And he basically throws both of them into the hallway, out of the kitchen, closes the door, and they're both trying to listen at the door. And what Harry can hear is Vernon talking to Petunia, saying, did you see, they are shook that they know that he lives in the cupboard. Like, are they watching us? Are the people watching us? Like, how do they know that we have him in the cupboard? And he's like, and Petunia's like, what should we do? Should we tell them that we're not interested? And he's like, nope. If we don't write back to them, they'll have to leave us alone. Which, I don't know what that logic is. I guess Vernon logic. So that's basically what happens. Harry wants his letter, but Vernon tells him to go to his cupboard. And then Harry's in his cupboard, and he comes back and he says, where's my letter? And Vernon's like, it was addressed to you by mistake. I burned it. And Harry's like, it wasn't a mistake. It said it was about my cupboard. But Vernon kind of, you know, cuts him off and says, hey, how, you know, we were thinking you're getting a little too big for the cupboard. How about you, how about you take Dudley's second bedroom? So they give him his second bedroom, hoping that'll shut him up. And also, I guess they were kind of so shook by the fact that they were kind of caught treating him like crap and putting him in the broom closet, basically. So they put him up in in Dudley's second bedroom, much to the trauma of Dudley. He's like, but I need that room. It's basically a room full of all of Dudley's broken toys and stuff, and a bunch of old books that had never been touched. Harry, like, if it had been before this day, he would have been so happy. All he wanted to do is be up there. But now he wishes he could be in his cupboard with his letter. But the next day, another letter appears, addressed to Harry Potter. But instead of the cupboard, it says smallest bedroom. And, like, they're literally being trolled at this point. I'm just saying. And thus begins a hilarious montage of Dumbledore, like I said, clearly trolling the Dursleys. Vernon was so spooked and determined by everything happening, because basically each day more letters would show up. He would board up the mailbox, he would board up the doors, and he was like, letters and letters would show up, and then on Sunday he thought he was safe, and we know that famous line, no post on Sunday, and suddenly they all start just flying in through the chimney. Through the fireplace, and Harry, clearly reason why he's not a Ravenclaw, is trying to jump up and grab them from the air instead of, you know, shoveling them from the ground. He gets thrown out, and Vernon is so spooked and shook by this, and he's so determined to ignore the situation that he makes everyone pack up and leave Privet Drive and go to a shady hotel. Like, he literally throws them all, and Dudley literally packs his VCR and his computer games. And, oh my gosh, it is so comical. And then, at the hotel, while they're having... Oh, this chair is so squeaky, I'm so sorry. But the next morning at the hotel, someone from the front desk shows up and says, "Is there Mr. Harry Potter here?" And he says, I have a letter, and it was sure enough addressed to Harry Potter room. It had the room number, hotel, and everything. And he's like, I got about 100 of them at the desk. And this leads Vernon to just go crazy, and he literally packs him in the car. They just start driving and They start driving and driving and driving. And he would stop at a spot, like in a forest, look around, shake his head, get back in the car, and keep driving, go to another spot, stick his head out, shake it, and go back. Eventually, he finally finds the perfect hiding place for them. I'm sorry, this is my favorite part, just this a visualization of, like, this is comical montage of him driving around trying to find a perfect hiding spot. And this leads Vernon to take them all to a tiny little shack on top of a rock in the middle of a stormy sea that he literally has to, they literally have to go in a boat across to get to. And it is musty, it is gross, but he's like, they can't find us here. And the irony of the situation is, like, Harry thinking they're in this crazy place, but in the midst of all of this, Harry's 11th birthday is the next day. So after everyone's all settled into this disgusting area, basically he is counting down. Sorry, I gotta catch up. So basically, after they're all falling asleep, he's keeping track of the time by Dudley's wristwatch, digital clock. And as the minutes get closer to midnight to his birthday, he gets there's these weird noises happening outside, and at midnight there's this huge boom. Someone's knocking at the door, and that is where the chapter ends. And my discussion questions are: clearly Hogwarts knew Harry was living in such awful conditions, so why do you think nobody did a thing to help him? And second, what would your strategy be to swipe one of those letters? So how would you get one of those letters out from Vernon Dursley's nose, or out from under him? So let me know your questions down, or your replies to these questions down below. So that is all for this book club video for this week. Thank you for taking time to join me. And if you made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy the first book club discussion video. And if you like this format, please let me know down below if you like it, if there's anything you would change about it. This is definitely a learning curve for me as it is for you. So let's work together to make book club everything we both want it to be. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please respond to the discussion questions down below, because I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about these chapters. And besides the discussion questions, let me know also your favorite parts. Just let's have a conversation in the comments. And yeah, I love y'all so much. Thank you for bringing Lumos to my life every day, and let's continue to live Lumos every day. Bye.